5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Tuesday, October 10th. Jordan, would you start us off with a roll call, please?
Please respond by stating present. Councilmember Ronayne.
Present.
Foberg.
Present.
Liebelt.
Present.
Rife. Johnson. Reinbold.
Present.
Langer.
Present.
Norvstrup.
Present.
Mayor Shoneman.
Present, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we take a vote to approve this week's agenda, I do have an addition that City Manager Robin Bob Zine emailed you guys about, and that was to add an executive session to the end of this, which is really the crux of this entire meeting to begin with. So if someone would be so kind as to make a motion to make that amendment and then to approve the agenda with that amendment.
Move to approve the agenda with that amendment.
Second.
Motion, Councilman Ronayne, second, Councilman Reinbold. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. No one has signed up. Motion carries. No one has signed up for the open forum, so we've got two items on our consent calendar. We've got a series of security licenses as well as a hearing date to be set for a new retail on-off sale malt beverage and farm wine license. Can I get a motion to approve that consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second that.
All right, so we've got a motion from Councilman Reinbold, second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Anything from the council on either of these two consent calendar items? All right, then, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we've got new business with single item, which is a public hearing, and a possible approval of a special one-day liquor license to be approved to the Downtown Association for their brew walk, which will take place on October 12th, which is the day after tomorrow, on Main Street from 6th Avenue to Railroad Avenue. No one from the Downtown Association is here to speak, so if someone on the council were willing to carry that motion, we will take a vote.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion Langer, second Ronayne. Anything from the council on this approval? I have my ticket already, so I was kind of hoping that we wouldn't deny it, to be honest with you. All in favor?
Really cool.
Do you have to abstain now? Since you've got a financial interest in this,
Right.
do you have to abstain?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not benefiting, it's costing me money.
I mean, my
actually.
business is
I have like a
downtown.
negative financial interest in this darn thing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. I didn't even vote. Didn't even need to. Motion does carry. The Downtown Association will be happy to know that we accommodated their request on that one. Next, we've got a series of bills to be approved here tonight, as you see added into the rear end of your packet. Take a motion to pay those bills.
Motion to pay those bills.
I can
Second.
call that a second.
Got a
My
motion,
home.
Councilwoman Liebelt, second Councilwoman Folberg. Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote on that payment, please?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Abstain.
Foberg.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Norvstrup.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Will abstain to House of Glass and Sewer Duct. All else I will approve, and motion does carry. Next, we've got our city manager's report. Robin, what have you got for us here
Okay,
this evening?
so I'm gonna talk in some generalities about some of the positions. Not really gonna get into a lot of specifics, but some of the things that I thought you would wanna talk about. Our planning and zoning director position. And we've got these, couple from the department here today. One of the thoughts that came to mind, has been that there are several references within ordinance that talk about planning and zoning, and Joe's intent was to change it to community development director. I think the more modern term is community development director. I think a lot of the communities do use that terminology. The question is it worth the change? Because you're gonna have to go through an ordinance change of some sort to undo the reference to planning and zoning director. Is it worth it? I guess that's one of the questions. The position, the things that they're going to be doing I believe will be identical, so I don't know that the change, does anything for the position. So,
Does, being that is referred to in the charter itself, does it need a public vote?
Yes.
Is it in fact referred to in the
I think it
charter?
is. I didn't look, but I think you said it was. If it is, it wouldn't require public.
maybe.
The charter of the city?
Yeah. That would make it a bigger hurdle, I would say, in the grand scheme of things,
You know,
especially if
although-
it was just semantics.
Well,
Yeah.
it would seem to me that we could adopt an ordinance, which Ron was here to speak to this, that we could adopt an ordinance that essentially says all duties of the zoning and
Planning and zoning
planning and
director,
zoning
yeah.
director will be assumed by the, what do we call this new office?
Okay.
Community,
Community Development Director.
And that would be simple, yeah.
thank you.
That would be a simple way to do it. It just, I wasn't sure that it was worth the hurdles, but it is a more modern terminology and more modern way of dealing with it because the scope is slightly wider. The other thing was that, the intent or the thought process was that the economic development director position would fall in under the duties of this. I think you're gonna end up with somebody new in the position. I don't know that you add the economic development director position into that initially. That's something that can follow in as, that person, gets more comfortable with their role. So my thought would be it stays with the city manager's office for the time being. Any objection to that?
Okay, so beyond sounding better, community development director, the kind of, your thinking is if it's a relatively easy to manage change, what's it hurt? But if it's gonna be a vote or something that's
That would be
consequential.
my position, but I would ask
Yeah.
that we defer that decision till the city attorney can weigh in on,
Yeah.
since he has to do the heavy lifting on the change.
Okay, so we can shoot him kind of those parameters here tonight, via email, and he can take a little bit of time and wade through those things and
Mhm.
find out what kind of an impact that's gonna make in terms of the law. Anybody else have any other strong opinions on whether they call planning and zoning community development?
I guess
Go ahead.
I would ask the people that work in planning and zoning what the norm is for the title of the person that runs such an office, and if there's like an association that's associated with the title, with the,
I have not done any research, so I know that just seeing in email chains, there's some of both. I'd have to look in to see if there's a industry standard.
Pretty much a horse and beast. One city will call it one, the other will call it the other.
And presumably, the intent with making it change is to make it a little bit more inclusive of those other responsibilities that would involve economic development and so forth.
I mean,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I just think I like the idea of a community development director only because, I mean, to me, planning and zoning is much more about infrastructure, and community development is more about that bigger picture of what's our community going to look like. And I know this department is responsible for creating that master plan, but if this person is a community development director, then their job is to have some of that vision for the city and some responsibility to be working with Parks Department and working with the city manager and working with the economic development person, whoever that ends up being, and working with partners all over the city about what's our city going to look like in 10 years from now. So kind of the eyes forward instead of in addition to the daily completion of carrying out ordinances.
Yeah, and I would say kind of go hand in hand with that. I think that if we could, it's something that I've been giving a lot of consideration to here, especially recently, is when people are making that first contact with this city for economic development purposes, for building permits, for any of those things, new people to this community, the better of an impression we can give to those people, the better off we're all going to be. And the better off the community is going to be, and they're going to have a whole different perception. So I'm not sure a title on a business card is gonna make that improvement, but I don't think it's gonna hurt. And I think that if that's the first foot forward that we make people interact with, that might have a bit of a psychological positive impact.
Yeah, and the same along that line, psychological impact is just if you're the community development director, I mean, I feel like it feels like a different job in a lot of ways than a planning and zoning director, because now you're responsible for community development. And so when someone calls and I'm not saying this doesn't happen now, just so you know, because I've never called and tried to start a business in Aberdeen. But if someone calls and tries to start a business in Aberdeen, I would hope this person's like a bigger picture question of how can we help you? What are you trying to do? Instead of this is the ordinance, this is the rule, this is the thing you must follow. And that's what I'm getting at is, you know, what are you trying to do and how do we help you get there? Which is the same thing you're asking Travis, is what kind of impact we can make here and how can we help you get where you want to go?
Yeah, so I would say that based on these conversations, any input from this side? Yeah, if we could, yeah, I mean, if it's an easy change and it's inconsequential in terms of our charter and big picture changes, perhaps that would be a good step forward and maybe breathe a little bit of a different perspective on people that have to deal with that office for their first point of contact here in Aberdeen. So
Mayor, I'm just to say, I'm okay with making the change, but I would like to know how that gets done and what that looks like, because
Right.
obviously somebody's not here that would weigh in and help us navigate that.
Yeah. So why don't we take the next step on that in terms of emailing Ron with that recommendation and finding out exactly what all consequence would have to do with that. And we can make our determination based on how much energy and effort and involvement in the community as a whole that would require. What's next, Robin?
Okay, well, it's been interesting because as we've gone through things with water and wastewater treatment in the last few months, a lot of people have reached out to me to talk to me about my departments, and that has been a department that's a carryover from the commission form of government. There was a commissioner in charge of water treatment and wastewater treatment. Pat Clable she was in that position for years and years. Every other department, Public Works Department, fell under the Public Works Director. Those two did not. And I would say virtually 98% of the communities across the nation have treatment plants under the Public Works Director. So my plan is to, Stu's got a new position now, I'd like to add to it. So I think it would be advisable at this point to add the two treatment plants under Public Works and get it to where it really probably should belong, because that position should have the expertise that those folks rely on. We were always technical advisors, but we never really had any oversight of the plants. And I think it would help them to be able to have some additional professional oversight versus the city manager.
Yes.
I'm not springing this as a surprise.
So, no, it's not a surprise at all. What I think an important distinction to make is that right now, the way we're set up is with Robin's background, those two positions, the superintendents of those plants reporting to him probably is just fine, but we know we have Robin for a finite amount of time, and after that, you end up, while it has worked in the past, I can see where there could be some potential problems because, you just don't have that technical background to be able to maybe make the most informed decision at the city manager's level. And really probably that isn't something that they should need to be concerned with, I guess. There's a lot of more bigger fish to fry.
So I'm curious about the hiring of the position of the city water treatment plant supervisor. Is that something that then would fall under the purview of Stu, or would you still manage that process?
I would say we'd work together on it. I think in a lot of these positions, I believe having additional department heads involved in some of that hiring process is helpful if they've got some expertise. I think his expertise would be helpful in that position when we find the right people to interview.
Is there an impact that you would see in terms of the pay of the person that's supervising those particular plants?
No.
They'd fall on the same
Yeah.
scale
Yep.
as it relates. They just have
Yep.
one more different person to answer to,
Exactly,
essentially. Joe had made mention that was really kind of the status quo for most communities, and I hadn't done much due diligence on handling it that way, but it sounds like that's the case from what you've ascertained.
Yes.
Any comment from anyone else on the council as it relates to maneuvering those two supervisors under the control of the Public Works Department? Go ahead, Councilwoman.
So then who looks at the number of direct reports each of these directors has? And why would the Director of Public Works, who has two directors reporting to him, in this case a him, be called a director? Like, wouldn't they have a different title? If they have two direct reports that are directors?
Well, they aren't technically directors.
They're
I think
superintendents.
They're superintendents, and you're the director.
Yes.
Got it.
I don't think it would change anything with titles. It would simply
Right.
be pecking order.
Just who they're answering to, who they're going to for questions, yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's somewhat of an unintended consequence, but perhaps because of my relationship that I've got with Robin and my direct line of communication, I'd always kind of asked for all the wastewater and water treatment plant questions to Robin as it was to begin with. So I assumed a direct pecking order there early on without even existing, because of kind of the way that the nature of the beast worked around here. Anything from you guys?
Makes sense.
Okay, seems like an easy one. Robin?
And probably this, and Jordan and I talked about this this afternoon. One of the things that has come up related, and he had the discussion about an additional position for his department. And it's interesting because I've had probably 7 different departments that have spoken up saying they're understaffed. And so I think we need to take a little harder look at prioritizing, because you obviously can't add 7 additional staff in one fell swoop without it affecting a lot of things. So I think we need to take a hard look at, and a lot of them are related to compliance issues, maybe on a federal level. The rules keep getting more difficult, a little more specific, and we probably need to take a hard look at how we start implementing this so that we are able to eventually phase in the needs of all the departments, but you can't do it all at once. And we've got to figure out what sequence that happens. And that's pretty much all I had for this part of it.
So you're not ready to make a recommendation to add a body in any specific department, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
That's reasonable.
Okay, and so Robin had a contractual issue for executive session, which we'd added, and I have an update to add to that, which is also a contractual issue, and then is there a third issue, I think, as well? So,
Personnel, yeah.
personnel issue. So if there's nothing else to discuss within your city manager's report, why don't we take a moment, clear the room, and we'll next take a vote to move into executive session.